Welcome to Zentangle Project Pack number 16, day 8, and day 8 of the 12 Days of Zentangle. My name is Rick.
Hi, I'm Maria, and look at this. We're going to do 4 tiles in this little session.
4 Bijou tiles, and you've seen the materials that we're using there. And we're going to just need scissors and some thread in addition to these
appreciation.
Beautiful tiles, right? These are Bijou.
Thanks, Bijou.
So we're going to go back to basics here with this one. And I'm going to put some dots in the corner. And on this, I'm putting these dots right in the corner because I've got a little idea of where I'm going with this. So first we put our dots. Then we connect the dots to create a border. And really treating this as the important part of the steps of Zentangle that it is. And I'm going to use the border as the string as well. And we're going to do crescent moon. And traditionally the way we do crescent moon is these little ladybug shapes that go on the perimeter. And I'm going to put the ladybug shapes in first and then go back and fill them in. You can also fill them in as you go, whichever one you enjoy. And I guess you could do it without filling them in at all.
You could do anything you want.
But I like the principle of the impact of the light and dark. It's very very evocative, very eye-catching. So just rotating that tile and filling in those ladybug shapes and enjoying the process.
It's funny. I watch other people filling in, and everybody has their own distinct style, and it's so funny. And they all do the same thing, right?
Right.
So
it ends up in the same place.
You find what makes you happy, and just do it.
At least on that day, that's the way it works. Now, normally when I would aura something, I would put it in the other direction, but I like that my hand follows that curve, and so I'm going to do it this way.
And it's just a little lump, and hard to miss.
And I add an aura to each one all the way around. And once I've got all of them done, then we'll add the second aura to each one. So I find it useful to add an aura evenly to each one of the elements, because you'll see when they start to increase, they'll meet each other. So there really wouldn't be room for another aura to get all the way out to the string or the border.
Right.
And then at this point, you've got a few choices. What I'm going to do, and it's what we sort of did the first time, is I'm going to aura around every place. And if I can't get to the string or the border, then I'm just going to bounce around in effectively a spiral, even though it might not look like a spiral.
Oh, it is sort of an inverted spiral. Right? Yeah.
So here we go. So I can't get to the border or the string there, so I'm just going to continue that line around until maybe I can get to a border or string. And I love this type of aura-ing because you never know. You can't predict like 3 auras ahead exactly what it's going to look like. So just like a tree can only grow sequential rings, in the same way we only do sequential auras. So that made it all the way to the edge. And now we're just bouncing around, effectively doing a spiral. Like Maria said, an inward spiral. And even though I think, oh, I know that I could, draw the aura without turning the tile, I want that that sense of the same construction of the line to use the same muscles to make it each time.
But not only that, you see it differently if you don't turn it, right?
And yeah, there's really something very profound in what Maria just said, is that by turning the tile, you see it differently. And I think, there's so much that we've become accustomed to in how we see our world that we miss the new perspectives.
I thought you were going to say nuances.
The new perspectives and the nuances that you get by turning, the tile of your world. So now let's add some graphite.
Pretty heavy, right?
Yeah, I'm putting it in pretty heavy, and just between the ladybug shapes, because they're not going to get any darker.
They actually get lighter. If you put the graphite on the dark black like that, the graphite makes it lighter.
Right, because it reflects light, yeah. So now we'll go around and just tease that out, and it almost disappears there. But a lovely...
A pillow, in effect.
Yeah.
I'd like a pillow like that on my couch.
Okay.
Can you make that happen?
So here we go. Again, on the second tile, dot, border. And you'll notice that I'm putting the dots in very deliberately as well. Rotating the tile, really paying attention or really appreciating this process.
And going back to the origins.
Yes.
Right.
So now that I have this space defined, this temenos, or sacred space, if you will, I'm going to put some holobah in.
Some big holobah.
Big holobah relative to that space. And I like to draw my straight lines toward me. And our habit with holobah is to have, or to not have, perfectly perpendicular or right angles or parallels. So just sort of spin it in different directions. And you'll see I'm drawing literally behind, because I sort of hover over what I'm drawing, and then it comes out the back on the other side. And I also play around with the width of these. You might decide, like what I'm doing here, is they sort of getting a little smaller as I go along.
Well, that would make sense because they're getting further away.
Right.
Right?
Exactly. So it enhances that that sense of distance. Sort of like when you painted the Knightsbridge on the front hallway, you made them get tinier as they went to the far wall. And then if you make them smaller, you can always get some more in there that you might think, it's full, but there's often always room for one more holobah element. And, you can make these different shapes. They could be curved, they could be triangular. It's just that principle of drawing behind. So to emphasize the over and under, I'm going to find the top board and then add some graphite. I might add it on just one side, or I might add it on both. On this one, I am just putting graphite on the tile where a board covers another board. So there's different ways you can do it. You can shade the whole board. In this case, I'm just shading, adding a little graphite where one element goes over another element. And you can see that sometimes you can use the graphite that's on the tortillon. Sometimes you may want to add some more. But look at how that all of a sudden become so
Three-dimensional.
three-dimensional.
Which is really what this whole project pack is about, 3 dimension.
You got it. I didn't
Yeah.
even put that together. But we'll put this together later.
We'll put this together
Yeah.
later. And now, laying on the heavy graphite, you're going to make it pillow in the center. It makes it come at you even more. There we go. We have 2.
Right? So on the third, we'll do, of course, the dots and the borders. And in this one, I'm doing printemps. And printemps is a word that means spring in French.
The season of spring.
The season of spring. And this sort of looks like a spring.
It sort of looks like a spring.
So this is our...
With highlights.
Yes, spring with highlights. And those little, like, breaks in the line is a technique that Maria often uses, and to give a little bit of sparkle.
Yeah. So when you're doing printemps, you want to first draw your first element, and then start the other one up close, too close, because you want it to go behind the other one, so that it has some dimension, as opposed to just meeting up to it. So you get up sort of close to it. See where Rick is unusually close.
So what's neat about this tangle, having done it after Crescent Moon with its aura and Hollow Ball with its drawing behind, is this one is incorporating both of those, because printemps is essentially this dot which is aurid in a way that makes it look like a spiral. And then they're drawn close to each other, so they go under the previous one.
These are traditionally patterns that we teach in a first beginner's tangle, and yet I still use it often and change it just a little. And if you, in your wisdom as you're tangling, can find it in your heart to think of me when you're doing this, do something just a little different. And you can see he's putting in this little triangular shade there. So I'll take that as the little bit of different. But each time you do it, try to use your creativity in very tiny ways all the time, so that it becomes your normal. Your normal is to always be creating, as opposed to copying or anything like that. It's just a wonderful exercise to start really small.
And you can think of it as like a test kitchen.
Yeah.
Right? Just trying out new things.
Peanut butter and jelly sandwich. How many different ways you can do that?
Right. So speaking of basics, this fourth one after our dot and border is what we call floors. And this also was an early tangle based on our kitchen floor. And it is what we call a grid tangle. So in the days before reticula and fragments, we had these grid, and still do have these grid tangles. And floors is a very basic and in some ways really profound, because in its simplicity, it does something that is new, in that, okay, we're creating an element that goes over that grid.
Yeah, usually they don't go over the grid, right?
And so it introduces the idea of changing something that's there by putting something else on top of it. There's a few tangles that do that, but not that many. I think cubine is one.
Right.
And you saw that earlier, where that little diamond shape goes over what was already drawn. So again, we are putting this perimeter graphite and then just teasing it in for, like Maria calls it, that pillow effect. And you can keep working and reworking it. And so here we have our 4 basic tiles with our 4 basic shapes. You'll see 2 are curved, 2 are straight. And the reason that I left a very small border is I'm going back in with the silver jelly roll, and I'm going to make the border silver. Sort of a little nice touch. Yeah,
A little frosting.
frosting, we'll go with that.
And you can see he's getting right to the edge.
Yeah. And again, taking your time, and on this one particularly, the jelly roll pens, very light touch, and you can just move that ink around almost like it's pooling, and it stays it actually stays wet for a little while. So we've got all of those done, and I would give this a little time to dry. You want that really nice and dry, because now we're going to do a little assembly, and I'm taking my scissors here and getting a little bit of thread. I think it's a little less than a foot.
It's a heavy thread too.
Yeah.
It's not. It's more like a carpet thread or something.
So I am taking the two round shapes, the curvy shapes, and I'm going to glue them together, and I'm going to take the two straight line tangles and glue those together, back to back. So with our wonderful Mod Podge, I'll put the Mod Podge on one of them, and then just lay the thread in, coming off one corner. And the trick that I found here is to get it aligned where you want it before you press really hard, because at least up here, in the dryness, the tiles just absorb that Mod Podge, and once you've got it lined up, then you can just press it. And we'll do that same thing with the other one. And I lay my Mod Podge on the side so I don't have to tease it up to the nozzle every time. Get those lined up.
And we let them dry for a little bit, right?
Yes, we're going to let these dry. So now's a good time. You can go up or over and make a cup of tea. And we're back. So I'm going to take a pair of scissors. Now on the one that has the thread coming out, we're going to start at the corner opposite the thread. And I'm going to cut towards the other corner a little bit past center. And then I'm going to do the very same thing with the other one. Start at the corner. And just sort of aim for the other corner.
That's a little tricky because you had the lines that are just slightly askew, right?
And then you can see where we're going here. We're going to make a three-dimensional, lovely little ornament with our 4 basic tiles, tangles. So I want to cut that, I guess, a little bit further than center. And then I'll put that in there. And then just sort of, it's pretty strong. You can just get everything lined up.
How pretty, right?
So every time it rotates, you're going to see a different classic tangle, right?
I like the way they spin.
That fun?
Yes.
And then I decided, I'm just going to touch up the really, I'm not being overly obsessive, but just a little bit obsessive.
A little bit obsessive. If I were to do that, I would lay it flat on a scrap paper and guide my pen along the scrap paper at a different angle, on a very, very more slightly. That works too.
So once I've got that where I want it, it's Mod Podge time.
I think you've kind of gotten into this Mod Podge stuff. Yeah, yeah.
And so this is going to do double duty here of holding it together and making it really sort of glisten. Just sort of putting that all on there. If you want, you can always put glitter.
At this point is when you pour on the glitter. I don't allow glitter in the house because
It's everywhere.
We have stuff everywhere as it is, you know.
All right, so
I'd have glittered dust bunnies.
right.
I think it is dry.
Yeah, I think that is dry.
And you're remolding.
So you can like go back and readjust that.
Well, I like the imperfection of it because it gives it that paper mache feel. You know, when you were kids, you made paper mache. So many people don't do that anymore.
Right.
What's with that?
Now I'm going to get this lovely bowl, which, if you look at it, doesn't that look like Hollis?
It does, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So anyways, I'm putting on, if you have some Mod Podge left, or you might want to wait till you're all done all of the projects before you double coat this, so you make sure you don't run out. But I chose to put another coat on just to make it a little bit more glisteny. And then I'll put that aside, let that dry. And there we go.
It does glisten a little bit.
Yeah. Picks up the light a little bit more.
Yeah. How fun.
Isn't that cool? So we have a little original Tangle Bijou ornament. Right?
Well, that's cool.
So thanks again for playing along with us, and we look forward to seeing what you create, and we'll see you tomorrow.
Bye.
Bye now.